So we have a few movies here to talk about today. I didn't get to review. These are just a couple of things that either couldn't get to when they came out, so I saw them later and want to talk about, or some stuff that I just didn't have enough content to talk about in a full-time review. So you guys already know how this works. Let's just get right into it. The first movie I want to talk about today is Primate. This was a film that I was kind of excited for just because it seemed to have the potential to be really bad in a good way. I love ridiculous movies like this. I think that they are some of the most fun things to see in the movie theater, and Primate did not disappoint for me. This movie was absolutely bonkers from start to finish, and I think it's one of the few instances of good bad movies that kind of knew how bad it was and leaned into it, and it actually worked. The film kind of gave you exactly what you want. This primate, this chimp just going absolutely insane, and the actor who played the chimp in the suit was making all these hilarious body movements and just being, I don't know, it's hard to describe just because of how ridiculous it is, but it works. It definitely works. Now, it's not to say that this is in any way a good film. It is not. I think that character writing is awful. It really looks like a Netflix original in places. But again, it does deliver exactly what I wanted from it, and that's all you can really ask for. And I'm going to give it a 2.5 out of 5 because it's definitely one of the better good bad movies that I've seen in a while. Then we have the first of 2 horror movies that I wanted to talk about today. I guess Primate also counts as a horror movie technically, but these are definitely a little more straightforward, a little more taking themselves seriously. And the first one I wanted to talk about was Undertone. This was an A24 film that just recently released, and it was getting a lot of buzz. A lot of people were calling it one of the scariest movies of the year, calling it, a very visceral sound experience especially. We've obviously seen that marketing being done over and over again. We saw it kind of popularized with Longlegs, and now every horror movie is claiming to be the scariest thing you've ever seen. But I was intrigued by the premise, and I think that A24 usually has a pretty decent track record with horror. Unfortunately, this was a big old pile of shit. I did not like Undertone whatsoever. I found the entire execution of the movie to be incredibly amateurish and undercuts any sort of horror that you would be able to feel. More specifically, in the sound design, I found it to be just not enough. Never scratching underneath the surface. It never does anything that you wouldn't expect from literally any other horror film. In fact, this feels like a college freshman film major made this movie. Like, this feels like one of the first things that you would produce when, yes, you have good ideas, yes, you have the foundation of what a movie is and what your directorial voice is, but don't know anything about blocking, lighting, good sound design, how to direct actors, how to write dialogue. It feels like someone without that knowledge just went ahead and made this movie. It really shows. This thing is super amateurish, especially in the screenwriting. There were multiple times, especially in the screenwriting, there were multiple times where I was pointing out moments where I was noticing stuff like they told us that day one, like screenwriting 101. I've taken that class. I've done that course before, and they tell you in the first week not to do that. So it was very a frustrating experience, something that could have been super horrifying, something that really could have hit with an impact, especially if the sound design was anywhere close to what it should have been and the script wasn't written by a 19-year-old. So yeah, I really was left frustrated with this very underbaked product. 1.5 out of 5. Speaking of underbaked and frustration, Psycho Killer was a movie that dropped earlier in February. This was something that I was excited for. It was made by the same writer as Seven and The Killer. It was promoting that a lot, and it kind of looked like a cool trailer, but then the reviews came out saying how god-awful it was. I still held out hope, but I definitely delayed seeing it because of that, and yeah, they were right. This thing is real bad. I can't even really detail where the film went wrong specifically because it's all wrong. The movie stumbles out of the gate and just keeps falling as you're watching it more. The entire mystery, the cat and mouse game that usually comes along with these films, was so poorly done and so ham-fisted and just misunderstood what this film should have been tonally that again, it's a laughable excuse for a murder mystery. This movie is hilarious for sure, but man, was it bad. 1 out of 5. Thankfully, these last 2 movies are definitely some stuff worth checking out, and the first thing I want to talk about is The Moment. This was a movie that I had on my radar for quite a while. I thought that the premise was very interesting. I think that Charlie XCX as a celebrity and as a personality kind of lends itself very well to film, and to see her kind of dive fully into it and be in so many projects is very interesting and something that I want to see more of, especially after seeing The Moment. It's quite obvious that she did a lot of reflection after what happened with Brad Summer and her blowing up and stuff like that, and this film feels like a lot of catharsis for those feelings for her, and it was very interesting to see what she chose to comment on, you know, how that experience changed her attitude towards fame and kind of how cyclical and very fake the pop industry is. Choosing to tell the story in this kind of alternate reality mockumentary was, again, very interesting, and it's the kind of self-reflection and kind of self-consciousness that you do not see from pop stars like this, so I found it to be a very intriguing thought experiment. It wasn't the most well put together film. I think the editing is a little too janky. I think it throws you around a little bit too much and kind of makes you a little nauseous. Same with some of the other filmmaking choices. There are performances in here that really work for me, and there are performances that really don't. It's definitely an uneven experience, I would say, but it's one that I found to be mostly positive, and one that I think, again, is a very interesting thought experiment that we need to see more of. Like, more risks taken like this from major personalities, major celebrities, is something that I definitely would want to see more of, and I'm definitely very intrigued by the rest of Charli XCX's filmography and what she chooses to do next, so I'm going to give The Moment a 3.5 out of 5. And our last film up today is Project Hail Mary. This was a movie, once again, I was very, very excited for. It had a few trailers last year. I think it was supposed to drop last year and then it got delayed to this year. It just seemed like the kind of sci-fi film that we're severely lacking in the mainstream at the moment, and delivered on exactly that. This is a very crowd-pleasing, very earnest, very heartfelt movie that I bought into right from the opening scene. I think Ryan Gosling gives one of his all-timers in this movie. We really get to see a vulnerable side of him that we haven't seen throughout his filmography. I think that he really commands the screen throughout most of the film. A lot of the elements of Project Hail Mary would seem very cheesy and corny on paper, but I think that Phil Lord and Chris Miller were the perfect directors to bring this kind of story to life, because they make you feel that emotion, even in the cornier bits. They make you constantly invested because not only they put a lot of care into Ryan Gosling's character, but I think that they turn on the emotion at just the right time and choose to pull back at just the right time. And that is crucial for this kind of film, because you can very easily veer off into very corny waters, and I think that they did a great job of balancing that tonally. Visually, this thing is flawless. I think that there are some sequences in here that are genuinely breathtaking and are made to be seen in a theater. Sandra Hüller gives a phenomenal performance in this, even though her screen time is very limited. Where I run into some problems with this movie, I think it's a little bloated. I think that we could have gotten more time building up the relationship between Ryan Gosling's character and Sandra Hüller's character. There are moments that are cut a little too short, and then moments that I think they linger on a little too much, and especially in the middle act. They're not deal breakers whatsoever. I still really enjoyed my time with Project Hail Mary. I think that this kind of crowd-pleasing sci-fi that is taken seriously enough but is still appealing to a wider audience is something that is necessary and something that we need to see more of, because I think it'll get more people in the movie theater. There are just little gripes that I have with it that are kind of blocking it from being like a best of the year candidate. Like, yeah, I really, please go see Project Hail Mary, and more so just, I had a great time with this. I think it's very well made and everybody should go see it, but you know, maybe it's not one of my all-time personal favorites. So for that, I have to give it a really strong 3.5 out of 5. Once again, very much recommend Project Hail Mary, but it may not, you know, there are just a few things holding it back for me. And those are my thoughts on 5 new releases. What did you guys think of Primate, Undertone, Psycho Killer, The Moment, and Project Hail Mary? If you've seen them, please let me know in the comments down below. And yeah, I will see you with the best of the year list, which will be dropping very soon. Thank you guys so much for watching.